San Francisco, California, the Jade Palace restaurant. November 12th, 1967. Tuesday evening, 9:52 p.m. 23 people were inside that establishment when it occurred. 23 observers to an event that was never captured on film, never recorded in photographs, never formally registered in any official capacity. The confrontation endured 11 seconds. What transpired during those 11 seconds would become discussion material in martial arts communities for generations. Argued over, examined. Some individuals would label it folklore. Others would vow on everything sacred. It unfolded precisely as recounted. However, here's the aspect nobody challenges. A 250-pound professional grappler entered the Jade Palace that evening seeking confrontation, and he discovered Bruce Lee seated calmly in booth 9, consuming lo mein with wooden sticks. Now what followed altered how that grappler and every other person in that establishment comprehended what authentic combat genuinely signified. This represents the account they've been sharing in hushed voices for 55 years. This is the truth of November 12th, 1967, the Jade Palace restaurant, Chinatown, San Francisco, 9:35 p.m. The establishment is occupied but not overcrowded. Tuesday evening meal service. The aroma of scallions, ginger root, and fermented soy permeates the atmosphere. Ewoks crackle in the cooking area. Vapor ascends from woven containers. Traditional Chinese melodies emanate quietly from a transistor radio positioned behind the service counter. 23 individuals distributed throughout 12 dining tables. Family units concluding their meals. One romantic pair. 3 aging Chinese gentlemen engaged in mahjong at the corner position. Servers navigating between tables carrying ceramic pots and metal trays. In booth 9, positioned toward the rear, distant from the street-facing glass, sits a compact Asian gentleman wearing a navy athletic jacket. Bruce Lee, 27 years of age, 5 feet 7 inches in height, 135 pounds in weight, dining in solitude, wooden sticks moving with precision from container to lips, a vessel of fragrant tea positioned adjacent to his dish, a journal lying open beside the tea vessel. He's documenting between mouthfuls. Observations regarding motion, regarding temporal precision, regarding his developing combat philosophy. Nobody within the restaurant identifies him. He hasn't achieved fame currently, not in any genuine sense. He's instructed several individuals in martial disciplines in Oakland and Los Angeles, conducted several exhibitions, portrayed Kato on that Green Hornet television program, but the program was terminated following a single season in 1967. Bruce Lee remains merely another martial arts teacher attempting to establish recognition, now simply another compact Asian gentleman consuming his evening meal in Chinatown. The entrance door swings open. Frigid November atmosphere flows inward and everything transforms. The individual who enters cannot be overlooked. 6 feet 4 inches in stature, 250 pounds in mass, not adipose tissue. Muscle, substantial, formidable muscle, constructed from years of professional grappling. His upper body fills the entrance frame. Now his neck measures as thick as most individuals' upper legs. He's clothed in denim trousers, a hide jacket, and Western boots that contribute another inch to his already imposing elevation. His designation is Frank the Hammer Morrison, not his birth name. Modified it for the grappling circuit. Projects more intimidation, more commercially viable. Frank is 31 years of age, professional grappler for 9 years. Operates the California territory, modest venues, agricultural fairgrounds, veterans organization facilities. Not the premier tier, not the garden in New York, but he earns sustenance. He's recognized for 2 characteristics: his magnitude, and his genuine toughness. Observe, most professional grappling in 1967 is pre-arranged, choreographed. The conclusions are determined in preparation areas, but the grapplers remain legitimate athletes, and Frank Morrison is more legitimate than the majority. Prior to grappling, he was a collegiate football competitor, and prior to that endeavor, an amateur pugilist. He comprehends how to genuinely engage in physical conflict, and he's intoxicated, not incapacitated, intoxicated, operational intoxicated, the classification of intoxicated where self-assurance transforms into conceit, where vocal volume amplifies, where rational thought evaporates. He's been consuming alcohol since 6 p.m. at a tavern 3 blocks distant. Bourbon, Maker's Mark, double portions. His grappling associates departed 60 minutes prior. They instructed him to return to his residence. He disregarded their counsel. Instead, he navigated to Chinatown, seeking nourishment, seeking difficulty, seeking to validate something. Frank surveys the restaurant. His vision accommodates to the illumination. He observes the family units, the elderly gentleman, the romantic pair. Subsequently, his vision settles on booth 9, on the compact Asian gentleman dining in isolation. Something activates in Frank's inebriated consciousness, and perhaps it's the tranquil self-assurance in how the individual is positioned. Perhaps it's simply arbitrary target designation. Perhaps it's racial prejudice, the variety of casual, unconsidered racial prejudice that was even more prevalent in 1967 than contemporary times. Whatever the motivation, Frank proceeds directly toward booth 9. His boots create resonance on the flooring. The restaurant becomes more hushed. Individuals notice the substantial Caucasian male advancing through the Chinatown establishment with deliberate purpose. This isn't standard behavior. Bruce doesn't elevate his gaze, continues consuming, wooden sticks to container to mouth, tranquil, concentrated. Frank halts at the booth, stands there, towering, obstructing the overhead illumination. Bruce consumes another portion, still doesn't elevate his gaze. Frank articulates. His vocal projection is considerable and resonates throughout the restaurant. "Hey, you!" Bruce positions down his eating utensils gradually, meticulously arranges them parallel across the container's upper edge. Subsequently, he elevates his gaze. His facial expression is composed, impassive, anticipatory. "You perform kung fu?" Frank inquires, not genuinely an inquiry. An indictment? Bruce examines him momentarily, absorbs the magnitude, the posture, the bourbon aroma, the hostile energy. "I engage in martial disciplines." Affirmative. His vocal projection is subdued, regulated, accented, though comprehensible. Frank emits laughter, excessively loud. "Martial disciplines, kung fu, all that chopping nonsense. Wait, are you genuinely Bruce Lee?" One of Frank's drinking companions referenced something earlier. Some Asian individual on television who executed karate or kung fu or whatever, the Green Hornet program. His companion mentioned the Asian individual was supposedly formidable. Frank didn't credit it. He considered it Hollywood fabrication, stunt performers and photographic illusions. Bruce doesn't respond to the inquiry, simply observes Frank, anticipating to perceive where this proceeds. "I'll interpret that as affirmative," Frank articulates. "You're that television kung fu individual? Kato, correct?" "I portrayed that character. Affirmative." Frank reclines against the booth. His mass generates structural creaking throughout the entire construction. "Let me communicate something to you. I'm Bruce Lee. Television kung fu and genuine combat are two distinct phenomena." The restaurant is absolutely hushed, currently. All 23 individuals are observing, some feigning otherwise, others openly scrutinizing. I am a professional grappler, Frank continues. I engage in physical conflict for sustenance, genuine conflicts, not photographic illusions, not restrained impacts, genuine. Bruce retrieves his tea container, consumes a portion, positions it downward. Professional grappling is performance. Choreographed? His inflection isn't disparaging, simply factual. However, Frank's facial expression darkens. You're designating me fraudulent? I'm articulating the conclusions are pre-arranged. This isn't controversial intelligence. Frank's mandible tightens. The alcohol and pride are combining destructively currently. Perhaps the conclusions are prearranged, but the physicality is authentic. The power is authentic. And I guarantee you, in diminutive individual, that I could fracture you in half prior to you landing one of your chopping kung fu maneuvers. Bruce doesn't react, doesn't become defensive, doesn't posture, simply sits there, composed, present. You probably measure, what, 130 pounds? Frank continues. I measure 250. I possess 120 pounds advantage over you. You're excessively compact to engage someone resembling me. This kung fu material only functions in motion pictures. One of the servers approaches nervously. Aging Asian gentleman, approximately 60 years. Sir, please, no disturbance. This is dining establishment. Please. Frank disregards him absolutely. Vision locked on Bruce. I'm not attempting to disrespect you, Frank articulates, though his entire inflection and posture suggest contrary. I'm simply being candid. Genuine combat is regarding magnitude and power. Always has been. And that's the justification we possess. Weight classifications in pugilism. That's the justification the substantial individuals prevail. Bruce finally articulates. Magnitude and power are factors. Affirmative. However, they are not the exclusive factors in genuine combat. Yes, they are. You accept this? Absolutely. I comprehend this absolutely, Frank articulates. I've been in genuine conflicts, street confrontations, alley brawls. I've engaged substantial individuals. Formidable individuals. Magnitude always prevails. Bruce nods gradually, contemplating. Subsequently, have you ever engaged someone instructed in efficient motion? Efficient motion? Frank emits laughter. You signify dancing around, rotating kicks, motion picture nonsense. I signify economy of movement, directness, utilizing your opponent's force and momentum against them. That's theoretical, philosophical. When a 250-pound individual grasps you, the philosophy doesn't provide assistance. Power provides assistance. Magnitude provides assistance. Bruce positions his cloth napkin on the table surface, slides from the booth, stands upright. The elevation differential is startling. Bruce at 5 feet 7 inches, Frank at 6 feet 4 inches. Bruce appears like a juvenile positioned adjacent to Frank. The other patrons tense. This is intensifying. The elderly gentlemen in the corner position terminate their mahjong activity. Now the romantic pair exchanges concerned glances. One of the servers disappears into the cooking area, presumably to retrieve the proprietor. Bruce elevates his gaze toward Frank, still composed. You genuinely accept magnitude is the determining factor? I don't accept it. I comprehend it. Subsequently, you should possess no difficulty demonstrating this, validating your assertion. Frank's vision narrows. You're challenging me? I'm presenting you an opportunity to confirm your thesis. And you articulate magnitude determines the conclusion. I articulate technique, and efficiency can overcome magnitude. One of us is accurate. You desire to engage me here, in a dining establishment? Not engage, demonstrate. You attempt to grasp me, restrain me, Utilize your power and magnitude. I will demonstrate to you the limitations of this approach. The restaurant proprietor emerges from the cooking area. Mr. Wu, 55 years of age, possessed the Jade Palace for 20 years. He perceives the situation immediately. No combat in dining establishment. You engage in combat? I summon authorities. Bruce rotates to Mr. Wu, articulates in Cantonese. Rapid, respectful. Mr. Wu listens, appears skeptical, argues reciprocally in Cantonese. Bruce responds, gestures to the space proximate to the establishment's rear, distant from the tables, articulates something regarding demonstration and no destruction, and extremely brief. Mr. Wu observes Frank, subsequently Bruce, subsequently his restaurant abundant with apprehensive patrons. He's calculating. A confrontation will damage his establishment. Frighten patrons. Summon authorities. However, this Bruce Lee is articulating respectfully, promising it will be concise, regulated, and candidly. Mr. Wu is intrigued. He's been informed of Bruce Lee. Comprehends he instructs martial disciplines. Desires to perceive if the compact individual can manage this colossal, intoxicated Caucasian gentleman. Now Mr. Wu exhales deeply, indicates the rear area proximate the cooking entrance, space between the final booth and the wall, perhaps 12 feet by 8 feet. Sufficient room there. Quick, no fracture anything. Please, you both depart afterward. Frank grins. This is transpiring. This television kung fu individual is genuinely going to attempt. You're certain regarding this, diminutive individual? I don't desire to injure you. Bruce is already navigating to the cleared space. Your concern is acknowledged. The improvised arena. 9:52 p.m. The 23 individuals in the restaurant rearrange themselves. Nobody departs. Everyone desires to observe. The family units withdraw to provide space. The elderly gentlemen abandon their mahjong activity absolutely. Relocate their seating for superior observation. The romantic pair on the date maneuvers their table aside. This is the most intriguing occurrence to transpire at the Jade Palace in years. A Bruce stands in the cleared space, relaxed, hands at his sides, respiration normal. He's clothed in the navy athletic jacket, flexible soled footwear, no warm-up exercises, no flexibility preparation, no combat stance, simply standing natural, like he's anticipating public transportation. Frank removes his hide jacket, transfers it to one of the servers who accepts it reluctantly. Frank rotates his shoulders, produces neck articulation sounds. He's executed this previously. Now the pre-confrontation ritual, intimidation through physicality. In his cotton shirt, Frank's magnitude is even more apparent. His upper limbs are massive. His torso is barrel-shaped. His hands, when he constructs fists, are the magnitude of compact melons. He's engaged in taverns, in vehicle storage areas, in grappling arenas. He's prevailed in the majority of those confrontations through sheer physical dominance. Grasp, compress, project, immobilize, uncomplicated, effective, Mr. Now Wu articulates from behind the service counter. Acceptable. Demonstration. No striking facial area. No fracture furnishings. Somebody sustains injury. We terminate. Comprehend? Both individuals nod affirmatively. Frank settles into an aggressive stance. Weight low, hands extended, prepared to execute a takedown or clinch maneuver. This is his methodology. Approach closely. Utilize the magnitude. Dominate the body. And conclude it rapidly. Bruce still hasn't assumed a combat stance. Still simply standing there, loose, present. Frank frowns. You going to elevate your hands? Prepare yourself? I am prepared. You don't appear prepared. You appear like you're anticipating in queue at the postal facility. Preparedness isn't regarding posture. It's regarding awareness. Frank shakes his head. Whatever, individual. Your funeral. One of the elderly Asian gentlemen vocalizes something in Cantonese. Bruce glances over, nods slightly. And the aged individual just instructed him to exercise caution. Bruce appreciates it. Frank articulates. So how does this function? I simply attempt to grasp you? Attempt to restrain me utilizing your power and magnitude. Demonstrate to everyone here that your advantages render me helpless. This is what you accept? Affirmative. This is what I comprehend. Subsequently demonstrate. Frank doesn't anticipate, doesn't telegraph his intention, simply moves. For a substantial individual, now he's rapid. 9 years of professional grappling, years of football prior to that. He comprehends how to explode from a stance. He propels forward, upper limbs extending for a clinch maneuver, aiming to grasp Bruce's torso, withdraw him inward, secure him. The restaurant retains its respiration. Frank's hands close on vacancy. Bruce is not positioned there. He's relocated. Not dramatically, not a substantial leap or dive, simply a subtle displacement, weight transferred, angle modified, barely perceptible to the untrained vision, however sufficient. Frank's momentum transports him forward into nothingness. Frank recovers, resets, establishes his feet, attempts again. This occasion he doesn't propel. He navigates forward, hands extended, attempting to corner Bruce against the wall. Utilize the limited space to entrap him. Bruce moves along the wall, smooth, economical. Every step, precise. Frank follows, eliminating angles, utilizing his magnitude to diminish the available space. Subsequently, Frank commits, lunges, both hands reaching. And for the second occasion, Bruce isn't where Frank anticipated him to be. This occasion, Bruce has relocated inside Frank's reach. Closer, not more distant. Counterintuitive. Frank's upper limbs are extended past Bruce's position, and in that half second where Frank is overextended, off balance, Bruce moves. His hands contact Frank's lead upper limb. Not a grasp, not a push. Simply contact. Light, precise contact at the wrist joint and elbow joint. And Frank, all 250 pounds of professional grappler, suddenly discovers himself rotating. His body turning against his volition. His balance vanished. His feet scrambling to synchronize with what his upper body is executing. Bruce guides the rotation. Doesn't force it, doesn't muscle it. Utilizes Frank's own forward momentum. Adds a subtle angle. And Frank rotates 180 degrees. Now currently Frank is facing distant from Bruce. Confused. Off balance. The entire restaurant emits a collective gasp. Frank catches himself. Stumbles forward 2 steps. Rotates back around. His facial expression is flushed. That wasn't supposed to transpire. What the hell was that? Bruce returns to his neutral stance. Redirection. Your momentum. Your force. I simply provided it a trajectory. You acquired fortune. I wasn't prepared. You moved with complete commitment, and you were prepared. Frank's respiration is more labored, currently. Not from physical exertion, from frustration. He's a professional athlete. He comprehends physical confrontation. What just transpired doesn't constitute sense, according to his experience. Substantial individuals dominate compact individuals. That's the principle. Again, Frank articulates. You're certain? Again. This occasion, Frank modifies strategy. No more reaching, no more extending. Well, he's going to utilize his grappling foundation. Remain compact. Close the distance. Once he acquires his hands on Bruce, genuinely on him, it's concluded. He'll bear hug him, elevate him, demonstrate to everyone that when technique encounters raw power, power prevails. Frank advances inward more gradually this occasion, regulated, hands elevated, protecting his center line. He's not providing Bruce anything to redirect. He's going to establish contact, establish grips, the subsequently impose his volition. 3 feet between them, 2 feet. Frank's hands propel outward, rapid, aiming for Bruce's shoulders and upper limbs. The commencement of a clinch that will lead to a bear hug, that will lead to Bruce being elevated from the ground surface like a juvenile. Contact. Frank's hands land on Bruce's shoulders for precisely 1/10 of a second, because Bruce descends, not falls, descends. Weight sinks, stance lowers, and as he descends, now his upper limbs come upward inside Frank's grip, not combating the hands, joining them, following their pressure. Bruce's forearms establish contact with the interior of Frank's wrists. Gentle pressure upward and outward. Frank's grip fractures. His hands are propelled upward and distant from Bruce's body. The clinch that was forming evaporates, and currently Bruce is inside Frank's guard. Close, excessively close, closer than Frank desired anyone to be. Now Bruce's right hand contacts Frank's solar plexus. Simply contacts. Fingertips. No push, no strike. Simply contact. Here, Bruce articulates quietly. This is a target. If I propel here with force, your diaphragm contracts. You cannot respire. You panic. The confrontation concludes. His left hand relocates to Frank's throat. Again, simply contacting. Fingertips on the Adam's apple. Here, 3 pounds of pressure. Your trachea collapses. You cannot respire. The confrontation concludes. His right hand displaces to Frank's floating rib. Here, 12 pounds of force at the accurate angle. Your rib fractures, punctures your lung. You cannot respire. The confrontation concludes. Frank is immobilized. He's never experienced more vulnerable in his existence. This compact individual is inside his defenses, contacting him with casual precision and narrating his own termination with a vocal projection as composed as a librarian discussing overdue literature. You notice the pattern, Bruce continues. Magnitude provides you power. However, power requires structure. Fracture the structure. Magnitude becomes irrelevant. Bruce steps backward, out of range. Hands return to neutral position. Frank stands there, respiring intensely currently, not from physical exertion, from the psychological impact of what just transpired. He grasped at Bruce twice. Both occasions his hands discovered nothingness. The third occasion he established a clinch, the thing he's most proficient at, and within 1 second, Bruce had disassembled it and marked 3 terminating targets. The restaurant is absolutely hushed. Nobody moves. Nobody articulates. Even the cooking sounds have terminated. Everyone observing is attempting to process what they're witnessing. This isn't a confrontation. Not in the traditional sense. Nay, there's no violence, no impact, no destruction. However, everyone observing comprehends they're perceiving something profound. A substantial, instructed, dangerous individual is being systematically dismantled by someone half his magnitude, without any aggression, any force, any visible exertion. Frank's pride is collapsing in real temporal progression. He entered here intoxicated and self-assured. He vocalized a challenge to a compact Asian individual. He was going to validate that magnitude and power trump everything. Instead, he's been rendered foolish in front of 23 observers. However, Frank is also, beneath the wounded pride, commencing to comprehend something. This isn't fortune. This isn't illusions. This is skill, genuine skill, the classification he's never encountered. One more occasion, Frank articulates. His vocal projection is different currently, less hostile, more desperate. One more. I'll acquire you this occasion. Bruce tilts his head slightly, studying Frank, reading him. Subsequently, you won't. However, I'll demonstrate to you the justification. Frank charges. No technique this occasion, no strategy, simply raw aggression. Both upper limbs reaching. He's going to grasp Bruce, elevate him, project him, conclude this, salvage something from this humiliation. He's rapid for a substantial individual, intoxicated on bourbon and wounded pride. He's remarkably rapid. The Bruce doesn't relocate. Frank's brain registers this excessively late to terminate. Bruce is simply standing there, not evading, not descending, simply there. Frank's hands close on Bruce's torso. Finally, contact, grip. His fingers excavate into the athletic jacket fabric. He's acquired him. Victory surges through Frank's chest. Finally, he commences to compress, commences to elevate, and subsequently, Bruce moves. Not distant. Into. Bruce's weight descends again. Now, however, this occasion his entire body coils. His right leg sweeps behind Frank's lead leg. His left hand goes to Frank's elbow, the elbow of the upper limb that's grasping him. His right hand goes to Frank's shoulder, and Bruce rotates, utilizes Frank's own grasping hands as a pivot point, turns his entire body. The sweep behind Frank's leg trips the foundation. The hands on elbow and shoulder dominate the upper body. Frank's center of gravity displaces violently. Frank, all 250 pounds, goes airborne, not elevated, perhaps 6 inches from the ground surface, however absolutely horizontal, parallel to the floor surface. No dominance, no determination in what's transpiring to his body. Temporal progression appears to decelerate for the observers. They perceive Frank suspended in the atmosphere. They perceive Bruce beneath him, having stepped aside during the rotation. They perceive gravity commencing to reassert itself. Now Frank impacts the restaurant floor surface. Not projected with force, Bruce dominated the descent. However, still, 250 pounds of professional grappler lands flat on his dorsal region with a sound like a substantial piece of beef impacting a butcher's surface. Thud. The impact resonates dishes on proximate tables. Frank lies there, stunned, the respiration knocked from his lungs, scrutinizing the ceiling surface. His brain attempting to comprehend how he transitioned from possessing a grip on his opponent to being horizontal, to being on the ground surface. The entire sequence consumed less than 2 seconds. Bruce stands over him, not gloating, not celebrating. Simply there, present. He extends his hand. Are you injured? Frank blinks, processes the inquiry, moves his upper limbs, his lower limbs. Nothing fractured, simply his pride and his respiration. He shakes his head negatively. What transpired to Frank, the Hammer, Morrison? He sobered that evening, awakened the subsequent morning with bruising on his dorsal region and a completely different comprehension of what combat genuinely signified. He consumed a week contemplating, replaying those 11 seconds in his consciousness. The method his hands closed on vacant atmosphere. The method his power signified nothing when his balance was vanished. The method Bruce dominated him without anger, without aggression, without ego. On November 19, 1967, he drove to Los Angeles, discovered the Junfan Gung Fu Institute in Chinatown, navigated inside. Bruce was there instructing a class. He perceived Frank enter, nodded once, concluded the lesson. Afterward, Bruce approached him. You came. I articulated I would. Many individuals articulate things. Few follow through. I've been contemplating regarding what transpired all week. I need to comprehend what you executed. And not so I can defeat you. I'm concluded with that. I need to comprehend, because everything I considered, I comprehended was incorrect. Bruce studied him. You're willing to empty your container? Absolutely empty. Subsequently, we commence Monday, 6 a.m. Don't be tardy. Frank instructed with Bruce for 8 months, November 1967 to July 1968. He never became a master, never reached Bruce's level. However, he learned. He unlearned his reliance on magnitude. He discovered that genuine power originates from structure, timing, and efficiency. He returned to professional grappling eventually. However, he was different. He moved differently, contemplated differently. His colleagues noticed, inquired what transformed. He never communicated to them the complete account. They wouldn't have credited it anyway. The Jade Palace Restaurant. November 12, 1967, 10:20 p.m. Bruce concludes his fresh portion of lo mein, consumes his tea. May the restaurant has returned to normal. The mahjong activity continues. Family units conclude dessert. The romantic pair on the date is emitting laughter regarding something. Mr. Wu halts by the table one more occasion. Mr. Lee, what you executed tonight. Extremely impressive, however also extremely dangerous. What if that individual, he withdraw a knife, he withdraw a firearm, you still so composed? Bruce contemplates this. If he possessed a weapon, I would have departed. A combat is not regarding validating points or defending ego. It's regarding survival. A knife modifies everything. No quantity of skill renders you bulletproof. So you select your confrontations. I select confrontations worth engaging. Tonight was regarding education, his and mine. I learned my techniques function against a larger, instructed opponent in an unpredictable situation. He learned that his assumptions regarding magnitude were incomplete, and both of us are superior for it. You're extremely wise for young individual. I'm a perpetual student, Mr. Wu. The day I consider I comprehend everything is the day I terminate growing. Bruce compensates his bill, leaves a generous gratuity, retrieves his journal, proceeds toward the entrance. As he reaches it, one of the elderly gentlemen from the mahjong activity vocalizes in Cantonese. Bruce rotates. The aged individual articulates. His vocal projection resonates throughout the hushed restaurant. Young Bruce Lee, tonight you demonstrated to us something we will never forget. You demonstrated to us that water defeats stone, not through force, however, through persistence and adaptation. You are water. That substantial American, he was stone. Stone is powerful, however stone is rigid. Water flows. Water prevails. Bruce bows respectfully. Thank you, Sifu. Your words honor me. Know your actions honored us. You represent Chinese martial disciplines with dignity, with dominance, with wisdom. This is what Kung Fu genuinely signifies. Not combat, not violence. However, discipline, knowledge, and humanity. The other patrons have terminated to listen. Some don't comprehend Cantonese, however they comprehend the inflection, the respect, the weight of the moment. Bruce bows again, deeper this occasion. Subsequently, he departs. The entrance door closes behind him. The November evening is frigid. A fog is advancing inward from the bay. Bruce navigates to his vehicle, a deteriorated 1957 Ford sedan, acquires inside, sits for a moment. He contemplates regarding the encounter, regarding Frank, regarding the expression in the individual's vision, when he realized his entire comprehension of combat was incomplete. Bruce initiates the vehicle, drives to his residence in Oakland, to his spouse Linda, and his young son Brandon, who is 2 years of age and resting peacefully, or unaware that his father just validated years of instruction and philosophy in 11 seconds at an Asian dining establishment. The Legacy, the account of what transpired at the Jade Palace on November 12, 1967, disseminated gradually through martial arts communities. The 23 observers communicated to individuals. Those individuals communicated to others. The account morphed slightly with each recounting. Some versions possessed Bruce combating 5 individuals, as some possessed him fracturing bones. Some possessed authority involvement. However, the core remained consistent. Bruce Lee, 135 pounds, systematically dismantled a 250-pound professional grappler without anger, without injury, without ego. Frank Morrison communicated to almost nobody. When he did, years later, individuals considered he was exaggerating or fabricating. An individual his magnitude admitting defeat to someone so much more compact. It sounded like a motion picture plot. However, it wasn't a motion picture. It was genuine. 11 seconds that modified 2 existences and validated a philosophy that would eventually modify martial disciplines forever. Bruce Lee progressed to become the most famous martial artist in history. He constructed motion pictures that inspired millions. He created Jeet Kune, a philosophy of combat that transcended style and tradition. He terminated too young, in 1973, simply 6 years following the restaurant incident. Only 32 years of age. However, what he validated that evening in the Jade Palace, that technique and efficiency can overcome magnitude and power, that genuine mastery is regarding dominance rather than destruction, that wisdom matters more than aggression, that lesson survived. It's still being instructed, still being learned, still being validated. The Jade Palace restaurant still exists today. Now Booth 9 is still there. On the wall beside it hangs a compact black and white photograph of Bruce Lee, captured sometime in 1967. Below it, a brass plaque articulates, "Bruce Lee sat here, November 12, 1967. The current proprietor, Mr. Wu's grandson, sometimes communicates to tourists the account. The majority don't credit it. No video footage, no photographs of the genuine confrontation, simply the fading memories of observers who are mostly vanished currently. However, in every so often, an aged individual enters, orders tea, sits in booth 9, and when inquired why that specific booth, they smile. I was here that evening. I perceived what transpired. I perceived a compact individual render a colossal individual foolish without projecting a single impact. I perceived genuine kung fu, genuine mastery, and I've never forgotten it. The account refuses to terminate because it's not genuinely regarding a confrontation in a dining establishment. It's regarding the moment when philosophy becomes reality, when years of instruction are tested against raw aggression and magnitude, when the student becomes the instructor without ever intending to. It's regarding 11 seconds that validated everything Bruce Lee accepted and modified martial disciplines forever.